And how do we know what's right and wrong? We often debate laws, right? And we discuss the intent of a law. That's what the Supreme Court is all about, debating whether or not it's actually a good law or a bad law. But what we really know for sure about all laws is that all laws point to a lawgiver. And I don't mean Congress. That lawgiver could either be, depending on what we believe, societal norms, a dictator, or God, a loving God. So, just to answer this, how do we know what is right and wrong? We have to ask the question, well, what should happen when an adult parent hurts a child? And we want to punish that adult parent and protect the child. Why? Why do we want to do that? Is that because of societal norms? If it is because of societal norms, that child and all children in the future should be very afraid. Because if anything over the past few decades has shown us, societal norms change quickly. They're not static. What is true today may not be true tomorrow if it's all about societal norms. So you live your truth the way you live your truth, and I live the truth the way I live truth. So what gives anyone the right to say that an abusive father is wrong? And if it is societal norms that inform us of those things, well, then we really are a people without hope. Because as I said, what was wrong yesterday, tomorrow might be okay. But how do we know then that it's not societal norms? Well, let me submit to you my proposal here that it is a loving God that is behind all of our laws. If we look at the laws, we look at what God has set down in the Bible as laws, what we see is not a cosmic tyrant. He's not a galactic prison ward looking to ruin your fun or rain on your parade. He's not a dictator who's opposed to fun or pleasure in your life. He's not any of those things. He's much more closely related to a loving father. And he wants what's best for you. Long before we knew that bad pork could give you botulism, he had outlawed pork because they didn't have refrigeration or good cooking techniques. Right? All of the foods that are good for Israelites to eat were all foods that could keep in the open air, if you really analyze it. And so what you see is that there's a purpose behind even the laws where we go, well, that seems unfair that he would outlaw that and let that other thing happen. It's not. And when you look at the rest of the things, he's trying to keep us from hurting ourselves, just like a good father does. Hey, don't jump off the roof. I really want to jump off the roof. Well, you may want to jump off the roof, but I'm telling you don't, because you're going to hurt yourself. See, he's the one who wants to restore us, keep us healthy, and restore us when we aren't, but he also is the one that wants to give us joy. Jesus declares, the thief, the enemy, comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come, he gives us our purpose here. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Now, that's an interesting phrase, life to the full, because it does not sound like a gift that you would get from a killjoy, does it? A full life? Throughout the Bible, we get glimpses of what a full life might look like. The best example of that life is Jesus himself. Right? His first miracle was performed at the wedding of Cana, in which he turned water to wine. And it wasn't just any old wine. It wasn't ho-hum wine. It was the best wine. That sounds like a guy who doesn't like fun. Or in other places, children flock to Jesus, and Jesus is like, don't stop them from coming to me. I want the little ones to come. And ask yourself a question when you encounter that story. Do children flock to mean people? Well, duh. Of course they don't. Luke 7:34, Jesus gives a glimpse of his joy. The Son of Man has come eating and drinking, and you say, look at him, he's a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Like, Jesus was not joyless. In fact, as far as his critics were concerned, he exhibited a little bit too much joy. That's what they were criticizing him for. He's having too much fun. He participated in life. Another example, the Old Testament is filled with all of these instructions. We looked at dietary instructions. But there are also instructions, which are taken as laws, for celebrations and festivals. Now, feasts served as a reminder of what God had done in the Israelites' lives and reminder of his faithfulness and his provision, right? They're also glimpses, those feasts are also, some of them, glimpses into who the Messiah would be at some point. But they were also times of just outright celebration. And God is saying, you're going to celebrate, darn it, because he's a killjoy. Right? See, God created us to experience fellowship, to experience recreation, to experience creativity. We were made to delight in being his children, using those gifts and skills and abilities that he's blessed us with. He's given, and all of those things are to welcome the pleasures that he offers. Why do we create beautiful things? To honor God. Like the artists of the Renaissance understood that. That's part of glorifying God and enjoying him forever, is using everything that he's given you and saying, this is fun to use. Now, there are many worldly pleasures that are not, in fact, healthy for us, and they are not conducive to long-term joy. Hebrews 11:25 calls them the fleeting pleasures of sin. They're false friends that quickly abandon us, and they leave us empty and longing. And so quite the opposite of killing our fun, God is protecting us from those things that will leave us empty and used and feeling longing for something better in life. God is protecting us from that. He structures family and church and society with longevity in mind. He wants us to have a full life. And so when you look at all of his purposes behind his law, you say he's much more like an earthly parent than he is in a prison warden, because he wants his children to have this rich, full life. But the purpose of our lives cannot be just a joyride. That's why we covered the why first. Our lives have deep meaning. We were created to delight in God and appreciate the good things that he provides. But the best way for us to do that, for that to happen in us, is to focus in on the giver first and not the gift. David wrote in Psalm 16, "You will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand." See, God is the creator of joy, and as the creator of joy, we will gain the most satisfaction when we find our joy in him. And so for our own well-being, God opposes all of our grasping after those worldly temporary joy things that sin promises. All those things where our passions that we talked about last week that we're supposed to be abandoning, all those things that take over us. And sometimes we have to put aside that instant gratification in order to invest in the greater joy of God's kingdom. That's called maturity. See, this isn't an argument for religious legalism that I'm making, not in the slightest. This is a logical conclusion of all of this. If I would follow his rules better, if our community would follow his rules better, if our society would follow his rules better, if our nation would follow his rules better, everything would be better. Not perfect, mind you. I didn't say if we followed them perfectly, because we're not capable of that. But if we followed his rules better, everything would be much better, because he knows what is best. He knows how everything is going to go, whether we follow his rules or not, right? And so the idea of us following his rules is going to ultimately bring us into the best place that he wants for us.